Okay, so we're going to just jump right in. Hi, my name is Stephanie John, licensed marriage and family therapist, and this is Reflect and Rewind. If you're new here, we watch our favorite shows, favorite movies, reflect and rewind, and pick out some of those therapeutic themes that we just see in these characters. And some of these themes we actually see in ourselves too. So we take this time, we reflect on it, and for the things that we can apply, we apply it. So we're just gonna just jump right into it. So grab your blanket, get comfortable, and let's reflect and rewind. So the episode starts off with Mary Jane talking to Kaira about what looks like going to be a break-in story. So to set the scene, there's this guy who is in a car. He's not really saying anything. There's a lot of cameras going. Just think newsy, right? And we're finding out information from this guy. Gonna find out this guy is male. He's a lawyer, overworked, and all of the things. Mary Jane goes up to the job eventually, and well, how should I do this? Because a lot of things happen. So on her way to the job, she bumps into David. David essentially is saying that he wants to talk to her and let her know all of the things that he essentially still wants to make it work with her. Mary Jane's at a point where she's like, I don't know if I can give you that. You're literally having a baby with someone else. I'm not doing this with you. And it's also first thing in the morning. So she basically shoos him away, but in that he ends up expressing some level of guilt.
Example of you.
I'm trying to tell you, I feel trapped.
To Mary Jane, in the case of having this baby, feeling stuck, feeling trapped, his words, and is regretting his decisions, but also just trying to just accept what is and seeing if there's still a chance for him and her, regardless of the fact that this thing is happening to him. So the last question he basically asks before she gets on her car is it too late for us? Which is like really interesting because I think that's been the conversation that they've been having this whole entire time. This whole entire time, almost for 2 seasons of like time and running out and all of the things. But that's kind of like where they're at. So then she finally gets to work and Mary Jane brings up to Kaira like, hey, I think we really should bring up this idea that we should bring up this angle of black men, stress, suicide, and that kind of be the theme for the story that they're going into. And Kara, interestingly enough, pushes back on Mary Jane a little bit and is like, well, what does this have to do with him being black? And Mary Jane lists a whole bunch of themes of black men in high places and who are ending up committing suicide, just like we saw with the Ludacris. I forgot what his name was, but with the Ludacris character a couple of episodes back, and then she names a few others. Like, why is this happening? Is there something essentially that we're missing?
Effective stress on the African American family in the 21st century, as well as suicide rates among African American men in corporate America.
Wait, this is a story about an overworked attorney. What does him being black have anything to do with anything?
And it's very interesting how Kara just could not see it and had to be like spoon fed the thing, which also brings me to this idea that in today's society, not even today's society, in society in general, anytime someone of from the global majority wants to say something is racialized, everyone else in the room oftentimes likes to point out like it doesn't always have to be about race, it doesn't always have to be about cultural differences, it's not always about ethnicity. Like, why can't problems just be problems? And problems just can't be problems. They can't, because they're not. It's always about race because race is often a factor into things. It just is, right? Like, the truth is, in because racial identity in the world in which we know it today is largely a product of colonialization and on many different levels, right? Like, there's a lot of countries that have been taken over, a lot of countries, and their identities have been altered and or erased. due to oftentimes the idea of one group of people wanting to dominate another group of people and therefore have an erasure of some sorts. It is racial in a lot of different ways. Now, is it always black and white? No. Sometimes the other demographic of people often are in the race as well, right? So she makes the point. Kaira goes with it after she was spoon-fed the thing. Mary Jane gets a call from Sheldon. Sheldon's like, hey, I have some information around this guy. I want to help you with the story. Also, they're going to try to say something bad about him and discredit him in some kind of way. After that happens, I'll get you to come over or whatever to tell you more about the story. So she goes back into the room. They're watching everything kind of unfold. He ends up being discredited by the company, saying that he's schizophrenic and all of the things. So I do want to take a moment, and even that, like calling him schizophrenic, unstable, and all the things or whatever. And I do want to take a moment of even that part, right? Like, it is interesting, and I don't know if the writers knew this, but it is interesting to know that they use schizophrenia as the diagnosis. And the reason why I say that is why it's always racial. Like, ethnicity and culture does matter, is because the history of the diagnosis schizophrenia was originally used, right? To not describe what you know it to be today, but to actually describe enslaved people wanting to escape their masters. Like, that act of them wanting to escape, or the thought process of them wanting to escape and what their freedom used to be considered to be schizophrenic. That was its origin story. It's only today. Okay, so let's just do this. Schizophrenia is a psychosis associated with considerable disabilities that may affect all areas of life, including personal, family, social, educational, and occupational function. Schizophrenia is categorized by significant impairment in which ways reality is perceived and changes in behavior are related to perceived delusions, hallucinations, experience of influence, disoriented thinking, negative symptoms such as limited speech, and extreme slowing of movement. That is the definition from the World Health Organization. That's what it's today. That's not what it was before. And they consider this black man to be schizophrenic at that. And then we find out he ends up committing a suicide. And this is the thing that Mary Jane was trying to like lean into when she originally was talking to Kaira. And Kaira kind of was like missing it. And unfortunately, once again, many people ended up being traumatized from watching that news that day, let alone that man and his children having to now deal with the repercussions on how corporations are mismanaging people because of their racial differences, right? So she ends up going to see... Oh, my battery died. And I remember I left off, I talked about schizophrenia. So we're going to pick up with, I missed this part when the scene first started and Mary Jane was talking to Kaira. She ended up also talking to her doctor in that same scene. And it does seem like Mary Jane is going to go through with extracting eggs. So she does have an appointment coming up. She has to give herself an injection, and it is supposed to help her ovulate. And then she's supposed to have some extractions done at a certain time. So this episode does track her ovulation time. In her family planning journey. Let's get back on track. So we leave that scene and we ended up after he ends up self-harming. Mary Jane does end up going to see Sheldon at his place. Sheldon then, it's interesting this scene because he's giving her this information but it's like a slow roll. Like, if Mary Jane came in to literally just do business and go, and Sheldon is taking his time with her, getting to know her, low-key flirting with her, or high-key flirting with her, as well as being professional to some degree as well. So she ends up getting the information that she needs. Sheldon says that he basically sees himself in this man's story, another man who is being mistreated, surveilled, suffocated, underneath American society, American corporate society, norms at that, and Mary Jane fashion is also debating him a little bit around the things that she and other Black American women struggle through, right? Or Black women struggle through. They don't gotta be American. Struggle through. And in her just being herself, he notes that, he's attracted to her intellect, to her boldness, and he ends up giving her the information. She ends up accepting his how do you say this? She ends up accepting his bid in wanting to go out on an official date. And yeah, but by her going to Sheldon, Sheldon did ask for some level of discreetness in his involvement, so she didn't tell Kaira about it. Kaira kind of got on her a little bit for being secretive and not being upfront with her. Mary Jane later kind of confronts her on the fact that she has also been secretive in this relationship, especially when it came to her potentially being looked at to lose her job at one point or another, and how she didn't say anything to her when that happened, and yet she still knows about it, So pot and kettle between those two. Yeah, okay, so let's stay with this. So based off of the information, she goes to the office, based off the information that she's gotten from Sheldon, she's looking through the things, and Sheldon, I guess based off of the articles that she saw, like, man stress and self-harm was high, right? Just trying. So it made her want to go see her brother, which she did. And then she just, like, wanted to, like, do a check-in, essentially, to see, like, how stress is stressed. Does she see herself being, is he at danger of, like, his thoughts around self-harm or anything like that? And it's interesting to see. This has happened to Mary Jane, I want to say twice that I personally can remember. One time with the prostitution with Niecy, and then now the brother, where her job is getting to her in a way, I guess, making her family seem a little bit more humanized a little bit, and softens her up a bit. So even in her approach with her brother this time, where we're used to Mary Jane being like, just get a damn job type of energy, I like to call that Mary Jane. Her job in a lot of ways almost makes her Pauletta a little bit, a little softer, a little bit more caring and considerate of their personal struggles, for who they are, and not for who Pauletta is or Mary Jane is in that way. So I just find that interesting. It's just an interesting note that she's done that twice, where, like, she'll call or reach out, or her approach to her family changes underneath those circumstances of seeing the other side, as to, like, how society could be mistreating or could lead people down a certain path if they don't have, or whatever, their circumstances. While we're still in the work sphere, I want to talk about Kaira, just real quick. So Kaira ends up seeing Gael again, and Gael is, like, speaking Spanish and all the things, and once again you see her, like, really struggling with allowing her culture and her language to take up space, right? Like, she's really she even joked with him, like, just like, I'm over here just, like, I'm waiting for you to just assimilate kind of thing. And that's not the first time Kaira has said that. Like, this idea of, like, to fit in, to get to where she wants to get to, which I think that mindset, I would dare say, is a survival technique. And then two, there's an expectation that others around her will do the same. And she struggles when people don't. She struggles when people have the audacity to want to be their whole selves or much of themselves as possible into a space that's usually trying to suppress that part of her. And she does not know what to do with that often. So Gael's interesting because, like Mary Jane early in this episode, kind of checks her a little bit and it almost invites her in the conversation of being more herself. And that he brings up this analogy roughly that kind of goes like this.
Work is that everything in life has a return period. And that no matter how hard you try to fight against it, eventually everything has to return back to its natural state.
And in that analogy, it's essentially just like, even if you like go away or try to do something different, you'll essentially always come back to who you really are. And I do think this may be speaking to something with Kaira of her leaning into her culture more. Because the truth is, the system knows she's Hispanic. The system knows she's not really a part of the system. Knows it. They know that she's a pawn. She would have to be bold enough, you know, to take up room. And maybe from being with Mary Jane and even by Gael at this time can give her the courage to be more of herself and not silence those things just to fit in. And in therapy, this is when like cultural competency is like really important, you know, because you can have a client in front of you, and if you don't take in the fact that they're not, first of all, if you don't take in the fact that they're not you, regardless if they were black or not, right? In my case, right? They're not me. They don't have my lived experiences. And the least I can do is ask them where they from. Like, where your people's from? Minimum. Outside of the story that I know I'm gonna hear, right? But who are they and who are they culturally matters. How they view the world is going to be with that lens included, even if it's with assimilation in mind. If she's like, I'm Hispanic, I grew up the corporate ladder, I decided that I wasn't going to lean into speaking Spanish or learning Spanish or practicing it, and I don't date Spanish men and I only date white men, I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to, right? Because how much of herself is she denying along the way? How much is that is also impacting her self-esteem? How much is that impacting her ability to really go far in her work for real? And what is she sacrificing in the long run that when she's 60 and looks back, is she going to regret? I would ask those questions. I would go down that journey of a rabbit hole, right? And how she experiences America, how she experiences her family and dating and everything else is different. The same way how Mary Jane said about black men underneath a certain amount of stress, and they are in these like high earning jobs. What's up with that? Like, what's going on? Yeah, their blackness does matter because white men are going through probably something else. The same way how Indian men may be going through something else versus men that present fill in the blank, right? Like it does matter, actually. The narratives do matter. And to act as if culture and ethnicity and race and phenotypes do not enter the chat is unresponsible. It is very unresponsible to not acknowledge that of a person. So even in my couples therapy, if I see an interracial couple, race and culture is going to come up. It should come up. Any good therapist would bring it up. Do we have to harp there? No. But if you're not willing as a couple to speak on your cultural differences, then what else are we not speaking on? And that's an obvious choice. That's the obvious discussion. So if we're not having the obvious discussion, what else are we not talking about? And I don't think any therapist worth paying for, right, worth spending time with, to not even ask that question at least once. How does this show up in your relationship? Right? So even for Kaira, if she was in therapy with me, and I am accepting clients, y'all. If she was in therapy, I would ask, like, what does being you mean? I'm talking about from birth on, your parents on, being Latin presenting on. And I still, you want to know what kind of Latin? Are we talking about Puerto Rican? We talking about Dominican? We talking about Cuban, Venezuelan, right? Because all those groups of people still have a different relationship with here. What state are we in? I also would know that I know they're in Georgia. I don't know what that looks like for Georgians, right? But I would love to know what that looks like. Like, let a girl know, because that does impact how you're navigating this world and how the world is impacting you. And why are you here? Like, in therapy, trying to figure out fill in the blank. You know? Even though I think about her husband was white, like, did those things ever come up? And clearly not, because he felt like she always chose her job over the kids, over him, over that. And I could imagine for her, especially if I can imagine for her, there's different things at risk outside of just even being a woman than for him, that he may not be understanding, but they also never spoke about, because she's assimilating, so she doesn't even bring it up. Or he's leaning into her ability to assimilate, to where he's not even bringing it up, or he doesn't even know what to ask, right? Because in America, to be white and to be male is to be superior, right? Not saying that's what he's saying. I'm not saying that's what he's saying, but it is a different lane in which you get to live in. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so let's get off of Kaira. So then, in this, there's a part of the day where Mary Jane ends up getting a phone call from a friend. I forgot the girl name, but I'll show her. The phone call from a friend saying that she hasn't really heard from Lisa for the last few days, and has she heard anything. So it seems like Lisa has not really been reachable since that big discussion blowout that she had with Mary Jane around David and whatever. So she ends up rushing over. The friend ends up meeting her at the door at Lisa's house, and she like presses Mary Jane. It's just like, hey, I know you've been dealing with this longer than I have. She's a psychiatrist, so she does deal with the medication and the mental health of some of the stuff that goes on with Lisa, but maybe not. It seems like does not know the depths of what this is, and asks Mary Jane up front, like, do you think she's suicidal? And Mary Jane looks scared and basically backpedals, because I think, once again, when we talk about that cultural competency, Black folks don't tell people about their problems for real. We don't get the reinforcements involved. No police, no big medical. We don't do none of that. And he says like, no, she's fine. How is she fine? That first episode of the first season was like scary. It was the first or the second, but either way, it was scary. And it looks like she was trying to like harm herself, right? Because of whatever depressive episode she's under or going through gets too dark for her. So she presses her and she's like, yeah, I guess she can use some help, but still downplays it. Don't really tell us the full story of like what's what. She comes inside. I guess they're talking. Lisa's upstairs resting. And even in her talks, like, Mary Jane, I'm not sure if she does this to soothe herself, to, like, make fun of or make light of a scenario. But she does end up, like, joking around with the friend. And it was like, you know, like, is she really depressed, or is she just looking for attention? And I've heard this before around a couple of people with certain mental health disorders like bipolar, schizophrenic, borderline, and maybe major depressive too. I feel like I've probably heard people in the supporting role of individuals who may have one of these diagnoses state that, like, being unsure as to like what categories, like, should I take this seriously or is it just this? And the truth of the matter is, a lot of these mental disorders, it's just like, if you sometimes aren't really the person, or if you're not a person who has gone through it, or if you're not the person who is going through it, it can be really hard to tell what you're looking at. right? Like, you're like, okay, you're just a little anxious. Like, we all get anxious sometimes, right? Like, just get up and go. And you don't realize, like, nah, anxiety can have you stuck in the house because you're too scared to go outside by yourself. That feels so silly because just yesterday you was fine and all of a sudden you can't do it today. Like, what are you talking about? The idea of not being able to get out the bed. Like, okay, I don't feel like getting out the bed sometimes too, but I still get up and go do it. And it's like, nah, that depressive cloud is different. It can get real dark. And the truth, you don't know what to do with that information. You don't even know what the person's even talking about, right? So what Mary Jane is saying is understandable in one hand, distasteful in another, because she is saying it at this lady's house, kind of keying over it, and the girl upstairs. Like, it just feels insensitive. Lisa comes downstairs and kind of presses the issue. The friend is kind of like, Lisa calls her out. The friend is kind of facilitating this conversation that I believe also did need to happen. She tries to push for Lisa to get the floor to say all the things that she needed to say. And Lisa basically goes off on Mary Jane, and in her going off on her states this idea of just feeling like unfair, like feel
your feet. How come you get everything you want in life and I get nothing? You have a family that loves you and all you ever do is complain. And you, with your total lack of appreciation for everything that you have, your selfishness is rewarded with an abundance of blessings. I mean, come on. You have an unfair amount of beauty, intelligence, wealth, fame, and all you ever want is more. And David, you've used all your powers to chase him away. And despite everything that he's got going on in his life, he still loves you with all his heart. Do you know what I would give to have a man look at me like that? Do you?
Feels like life just hasn't been fair to them. They just haven't get dealt good cards and just unable. And then Mary Jane does get good cards and she just moves carelessly with them. And that's whack. That's whack. Like, even if that's not Mary Jane's fault, why she got the cards that she got, or even how she's taking care of the cards that she has, they're her cards. She could do what she wants with them ultimately. But for a person like Lisa, who seems like who came from a really dark past, who has little to no support, we have not met any of her family. Even this friend is through Mary Jane. Mary Jane's the only person we've ever seen. David's someone that she loved or liked, and now she's seeing that thing flaunted in front of her, and she's really connected to the Patterson family. Once again, we have never seen Lisa's people. You can imagine someone just feeling really lonely, really outcasted, maybe even like so unworthy. Not my words, but this is just the thoughts I'm thinking based off of how dark Lisa has expressed her depression to be sometimes. Like, been so unworthy of better, of more, of her own, right? Not a hand-me-down life of Mary Jane, that I don't want to use the word jealousy because I don't think that's a fair word to use. But you can just be so stuck. Basically just like so stuck in whatever those traumas were, and people not really seeing you or really healing you. And even in Mary Jane's best effort, like, I've been there, but Mary Jane is nobody's therapist. She's a friend, sure. Therapist, no. And we also know Mary Jane can be really mean at times. So the things that Lisa may need, she may not be able to offer just because she just can't offer it. And if other things always took priority over her actual mental health, like pride or Lisa's job, as she mentioned at the door, right? Like, then Lisa never really gets the actual help that she can get and actually get some of the relief and healing that she's actually looking for, because she definitely needs that. And even though you're trying to be her friend, being her friend in this particular way feels more like a losing situation, And the truth is, if I was Mary Jane's therapist, I would just say, like, just to be there for her, job or not, Like, she can have that job, but if this girl ends up hurting herself, there ain't no job to be had. Like, she has to see someone. Has to. Right? And if you're a good friend, you will let her know that she should. And that regardless of whatever happens, that she does have supports, like in a real way, you know? And if she doesn't take it, that's her business, but you did try, you know? So that's that with Lisa. And Mary Jane basically is like, well, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to whatever. So like I said, mind you, throughout this whole episode, you're seeing this countdown of her ovulation clock. And she goes back home in Mary Jane's upsetness of like her taking care of her and not feeling like she can take care of Lisa anymore, which is also fair. That's a big burden to carry, potentially even on your own, the secret of like how dark things can get for her. And she calls David and basically is like, well, you said if I wanted a baby, all I had to do was ask, so I'm asking. And David says, well, he don't say much, but the answer is yes. And they go off, her ovulation clock ends, and they have sex, and I guess we're seeing if they'll end up having this baby. Before I close out, as a therapist, I have to just note, and I've said this in the past before, but Mary Jane continuously does a lot of reckless behavior. Just ongoing. Like, we have technically 3 men on rotation. We got her booty call. We got Sheldon that we just said we was going to see in a few days to go, you know. Then we have this biological clock that's ticking. And David. And we decided to be like, I'm going to put all these other plans that I kind of had going on hold for this potential David situation. And it's like, okay, but then say if you get pregnant, then what? He gonna have 2 babies in the same year or so from 2 different women, and how are you expecting him to father these children? Like, it's just so thoughtless. And David too, very careless. Very careless. Like, what are we're creating more problems, you guys. We're not creating solutions. You guys can be together. You can have a baby together. Hell, you tell them to extract the eggs, and he can even put that thing in a cup, and then y'all can freeze them embryos. Like, there's options if this is the route that you want to go, and it don't gotta go down this way. Like, why are we gambling with our future, our children's future, David's actual child that's on the way, and the potential one that they trying to make, all at the same time? And then F this girl. Nobody even thinking about this other woman. Does she deserve to be handled this way? And granted, it's not Mary Jane's job to be concerned, but it is also like, you know, the girl do exist. Like, come on. What are we hoping to happen? This is not the first time I said this, but like, these people are very impulsive. Very impulsive. Even when she was at Sheldon's, granted, she didn't drink the wine, at least from what we saw in the camera angle, but she could have ended up drinking the wine for all we know at the dinner, like later. But it's just like her dad said, like, are you even really even prepared to even have this baby? Like, are you preparing your life for one? Lisa called her out for that. Her dad called her out for that a couple of episodes back. And it's just like, she keeps on doing stuff that just doesn't make it feel like that's the case. Because now you want your kid to be brought up, you want to be carrying in this chaos. That's what you signing up for? I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Crazy work. But either way, that is being Mary Jane. That is Reflect and Rewind. I am open. Officially have my private practice open, accepting clients. So if you are Mary Jane, David, Lisa, or Kaira, women or men trying to find themselves after breakups, rejection, life transition, or couples trying to make it work and trying to be more intentional with your love life, unlike David and Mary Jane. I'll leave my information for my practice in the bio, in the show notes. Yeah, so let's that's it for Reflect and Rewind. Peace.